fucking hell? After that, nothing more, though I must admit that I was so stimulated by the bizarre exchange of messages that before I returned to sleep I quickly masturbated, releasing a strange tension as I thought of the dark-haired young actor with deep brown eyes and heavy 5 o'clock shadow who had engaged me in a pub garden conversation and then decided, for reasons which flattered me even if I didn't understand them, to take things a stage further. And then came the silence. No further messages, no attempt to maintain contact, and I must admit I filed the name and thought of Daniel Barnes away in the back of my mind, a pleasant memory of a short-lived flirtation. I'd occasionally be told by a mutual acquaintance that they had seen Daniel in a play or in a small TV role, but I took little interest beyond thinking that this was one brief encounter that had thankfully stalled before it even got started, the sort of complication a man of my age could live without. Chapter 2. There were other distractions to help me forget, most notably Thierry. I never did discover his surname, the French photojournalist I met at a launch party in Rome. He was tall, slim and blonde, rather more Nordic than my usual preference. But when, standing in a lonely corner on a veranda overlooking the Tiber, he put his arms around me, slipped a hand inside my open dress shirt to explore a stimulated nipple, and purred, "Et vous?" I found myself responding in schoolboy French, "Et moi? Moi aussi." I assumed he'd been asking if I felt as horny as he did in that heavy, fragrant summer night, and the answer was a definite yes as we kissed in the dark, forcefully and hungrily probing for tongues that were equally enthusiastic in their response. He broke away, and in faltering English told me that he was staying in room 376. I nodded, and let him walk back towards the chattering post-show party crowd, watching as he disappeared toward the exit. Then, a few minutes later, I followed, stopping only to say good night to friends and acquaintances, trying not to look like I was doing anything but calling it a night. I went back to my own room, checked myself in the mirror, and realized with my bow tie casually undone and my dress shirt unbuttoned a little lower than usual, I really did look quite attractive in a raffish sort of way. Trying to be casual, I went back to the lift and took myself to Thierry's floor, first knocking gently at his door, but then, without waiting for an answer, turning the handle and entering. He was standing by his bed with his trousers in his hand, looking both surprised and excited by my appearance. "I didn't know if you would really come," he said slowly, picking his words carefully. Then, placing the trousers over the back of a chair, he walked over and kissed me, almost shyly at first, but then with an increasing passion, his hands slipping into my shirt to feel nipples and explore my torso. At the same time, I was pulling the studs of his dress shirt, easing it away to expose a body that was smooth and pale in the dim light. Carefully, I moved a hand between his legs, feeling the bulge in his groin that rather sensible pants could barely contain. He had managed to get me out of my dinner jacket and my shirt, and was now tugging at the trousers, obviously keen to get at my cock. We fell back onto the bed, a tangle of limbs, me finally kicking free of my trousers as I liberated his pale, slim, pink member and took it in my hands, rubbing gently at first, but with increasing force that made him pant and groan with excitement. It was only then he managed to get my cock free too that he gasped, "Marvelous!" Greedily, he descended between my legs, taking the stiff tool in his mouth and sucking deeply, working his way around the shaft as his saliva lubricated the erection, mingling with my generous trickle of pre-cum. I pulled him up to kiss him again, my tongue darting in and out of his mouth as we practically fought each other for dominance, first one on top and then the other, an exhausting but hugely stimulating contest for supremacy, two hungry bodies wrestling and playing. "Je t'adore," he whispered as he pinned me to the bed again, his hands unable to stay away from my prick, but then I threw him over again and grabbed his, pumping eagerly until with a sudden cry of "Formidable!" he ejaculated a stream of cum that soaked both our